Captain Elias Vance stood at attention, his sharp eyes scanning the grand hall of the Valerie Palace. The alien architecture was strange to him. Tall, curved pillars, glowing blue symbols on the walls, and an air that smelled like fresh rain. He didn't care for the beauty of the place. His job was simple: protect the princess. Princess Carol stood near the throne, her violet eyes studying him with quiet curiosity. Like all Valerie, she had smooth, silver skin and long, flowing hair that shimmered in the palace lights. She wore a regal gown that seemed to float around her. But despite her elegance, Elias noticed something else: fear. Vance had been assigned as her bodyguard just a day ago. Humanity's entry into the Galactic Council was still fresh, and trust between species was fragile. The Valerie were a powerful telepathic race, but they were physically weak. That was where humans came in. Strong, durable, and immune to most mind tricks, they were perfect for protection. Carol took a step closer, her voice soft. "Captain Vance, do you always look so serious?" "I take my job seriously, Princess," he replied. Before she could respond, the palace alarms blared. The ground shook slightly. Vance instantly grabbed his rifle. Guards rushed into the room, their weapons glowing. A holographic display appeared before them, showing several ships approaching the palace at high speed. An advisor turned to the princess, panic in his voice. "Pirates. They've breached the outer defenses." Vance cursed under his breath. He had read reports about rogue factions attacking high-profile targets. The Valerie had many enemies, but an attack this bold, something wasn't right. "Princess, we need to move," Vance said, stepping in front of her. Carol hesitated. "But my people." "Your people need you alive," Vance interrupted. He turned to the advisor. "What's the fastest way out?" "The escape pods," the man replied. "But they're outside the main hall." A loud explosion cut him off. The walls trembled, and part of the ceiling collapsed, sending dust and debris flying. Valerie guards raised their weapons as enemy soldiers burst into the hall, firing energy blasts. Vance moved instantly. He grabbed Carol's wrist and ran. Shots whizzed past them, some hitting the marble floor, leaving black scorch marks. The princess struggled to keep up, her gown slowing her down. "Lose the dress," Vance ordered. She gasped. "Excuse me. Your fancy clothes will get us killed." With a frustrated sigh, Carol reached for the hidden clasps, letting the outer layers of her gown drop. She now wore a more practical bodysuit underneath. They'd reached the escape pod bay, but the door was locked. Vance smashed the control panel with his rifle. The door slid open just as more enemies appeared behind them. "Get in," Vance ordered. Carol didn't argue this time. She jumped into the pod, and Vance followed. He hit the launch button, and the pod shot into space. As the palace disappeared behind them, Carol looked at Vance. "Where are we going?" Vance checked the navigation. His face darkened. "Somewhere we don't want to be." Their pod was heading toward an unknown, uncharted planet, and there was no way to stop it. The escape pod hurtled through the atmosphere, shaking violently as fire streaked across the small window. Captain Elias Vance gritted his teeth, gripping the controls, but they were useless. The pod was going down fast. Princess Carol sat beside him, her hands gripping the seat. Her silver skin had turned pale. "Can't you control it?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. "No thrusters. No guidance system. We're in freefall," Vance replied. "Brace yourself." With a deafening crash, the pod slammed into the ground, metal screeching as it skidded through thick vegetation. It finally came to a stop, half buried in the soft earth. Smoke filled the cabin, and sparks flickered from broken panels. Vance groaned and forced the hatch open. A rush of fresh air hit him, hot, humid, and thick with the scent of strange plants. He climbed out, his boots sinking into dark green grass. Towering trees with glowing blue leaves surrounded them, their trunks twisted like spirals. The sky above was a deep purple, with two suns casting long shadows. Carol crawled out, coughing. She looked around in disbelief. Where are we? Vance checked his wrist communicator. No signal. No satellite connection. We're in the middle of nowhere. Carol took a shaky breath. Are we safe? Vance scanned the jungle. Birds with iridescent wings flitted between trees. Strange vines moved slightly, as if alive. The place looked peaceful, but his instincts screamed otherwise. No, we don't know what's out here, he said. We need to move. Carol hesitated. Shouldn't we wait for rescue? Vance shook his head. If the enemy took the palace, they'll be looking for you. And if they track our pod, we're dead. We have to find shelter before nightfall. Carol swallowed hard but nodded. Vance grabbed a survival pack from the pod and handed her a water canister. Stay close. They pushed through the jungle, the thick foliage making it hard to move. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. No birds, no wind, just silence. Carol's hand tightened around her canister. Something is wrong. Vance felt it too. The hairs on his neck stood up. He slowly reached for his rifle. We're being washed. A low clicking sound echoed through the trees. Shadows moved between the branches. Vance raised his weapon, scanning the area. Then, without warning, something lunged. A creature burst from the trees. A tall, insect-like being with sharp claws and a chitinous exoskeleton. Its red eyes glowed in the dim light. More of them appeared, surrounding Vance and Carl. Carol gasped. They have no thoughts. Vance fired, his shot hitting the nearest creature in the chest. It screeched but didn't fall. Instead, it lunged again. Run, Vance shouted, grabbing Carl's arm. They sprinted into the jungle, the creatures chasing after them. Stranded on a hostile world, hunted by unknown monsters, and with no way to call for help. Vance ran through the thick jungle, pulling Carol behind him. The strange creatures were fast, their clawed feet slicing through the undergrowth. The low clicking sounds they made sent shivers down his spine. We can't outrun them forever. Carl gasped, struggling to keep up. Vance knew she was right. He spotted a large twisted tree with thick roots forming a natural barrier. There, he pointed. Get behind it. Carol scrambled over the roots while Vance turned, raising his rifle. The first creature leaped toward him. He fired. The energy blast struck its chest, sending it tumbling back, but it got up almost instantly. Damn thing won't die, Vance muttered. The creatures circled them, their glowing red eyes watching. They didn't attack all at once. They were waiting. But for what? Carol pressed her hands to her temples, her breathing uneven. I don't understand, she whispered. They have no thoughts, no emotions. It's empty. Vance kept his rifle aimed. What does that mean? All living beings have minds, Carl said. Even the smallest creatures have instincts, feelings. But these are like hollow shells. One of the creatures suddenly lunged. Vance fired again, this time aiming for the head. The blast hit between its eyes, and it dropped, motionless. That's the weak spot, Vance noted. Stay behind me. The other creatures hesitated, their claws twitching. Then, as if responding to an unseen command, they all turned and disappeared into the jungle. Vance didn't lower his weapon. That's not normal. Carol shivered. They were testing us. Vance frowned. He had faced many enemies before, pirates, mercenaries, even war machines. But this was something different, something unnatural. We need to keep moving, he said. Find shelter before they come back. They continued deeper into the jungle. The trees grew taller, their glowing leaves casting an eerie light. Strange ruins emerged from the mist. Tall stone pillars covered in ancient symbols. Carol stopped, her eyes widening. This writing, it's Valeri. Vance turned to her. Your people were here. Carol traced the carvings with her fingers. This is impossible. This planet isn't on any star maps. If the Valeri were here, why was it erased from history? Vance scanned the ruins. They were old, but not abandoned. The ground had been disturbed recently. Someone, or something, had been here. A deep growl rumbled in the distance. The creatures were coming back. Vance grabbed Carl's hand. Time to move. She didn't argue. Together, they ran into the ruins, hoping to find answers and a way to survive. Vance and Carol ran through the ruins, their footsteps echoing against the ancient stone. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, casting a dim blue light. The air was thick with dust and something else, something old and forgotten. Vance stopped near a massive archway, his rifle raised. "We should hide here for now," he said, scanning their surroundings. Carol nodded, trying to catch her breath. "These ruins, they are Valeri. But why? Why is this place not in our history?" Vance knelt, running his fingers across the cracked stone. "Maybe your people didn't want anyone to know about it." Carol hesitated. The thought unsettled her. The Valeri prided themselves on their vast knowledge and history. But this place had been erased. A loud clicking sound echoed through the ruins. The creatures were back. Vance pulled Carl behind a broken pillar and aimed his rifle at the entrance. "Stay quiet." Shadows moved at the edge of the ruins. The creatures didn't enter. Instead, they lingered, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. "They're afraid," Carl whispered. Vance frowned. These creatures had chased them relentlessly, but now they wouldn't step inside. "Something in these ruins is keeping them out," he said, "which means we might be safer in here, for now." Carol turned back to the ancient symbols. She placed her hand on one, and a faint hum vibrated through the stone. Suddenly, the symbols pulsed with light, and a hidden doorway slid open with a low rumble. Vance stepped forward, rifle raised. "What did you just do?" Carol's voice was barely above a whisper. "I think the ruins recognize me." Vance glanced at the dark passage beyond the doorway. Only one way to find out what's inside. They stepped through the entrance, the door sealing behind them. The corridor was narrow, the walls lined with ancient writing. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Then they found it. A massive chamber stretched before them, filled with glowing crystal pillars. In the center stood a large circular console covered in Valeri script. Floating above it was a holographic projection of a planet. This planet, but it looked different. There were no jungles, no strange creatures. Instead, towering cities covered the land. Carl's breath caught. This was a Valeri world. Vance studied the image. What happened to it? Carol approached the console, placing her hand on it. The hologram shifted, and a new image appeared. A war. Ships rained fire from the sky. Entire cities collapsed in flames. And then, darkness. Carol pulled her hand back, her face pale. "My people destroyed this world." Vance's jaw tightened. And those creatures outside. Maybe they were the survivors. The ground suddenly shook. The creatures outside let out a deafening screech. Something deep within the ruins had awakened. The ground trembled beneath Vance and Carol's feet. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the glowing crystal pillars flickered. Outside, the creatures let out sharp, clicking screeches, as if they sensed something had changed. Vance tightened his grip on his rifle. "We need to move. Now." Carol stood frozen, staring at the hologram of the destroyed planet. Her mind was racing. My people, they wiped out an entire civilization. But why? Vance scanned the chamber. The ancient console in front of them still glowed. If this place had answers, they needed to find them. Fast. He walked over and pressed a button near the hologram. The image shifted again, showing alien figures. Tall, humanoid, but with chitinous armor. They looked exactly like the creatures outside. Carol gasped. They weren't always like this. The hologram played a sequence of events. The Valeri arrived on this planet long ago. At first, they lived in peace with the native species. But then something changed. The Valeri built massive structures, drained the planet's resources, and began experiments on the native beings. They forced them to evolve, stripping them of independent thought, turning them into mindless creatures. Carol covered her mouth. They are a hive mind. My ancestors destroyed their intelligence, left them like this. Vance clenched his jaw. He had seen horrors in war, but this. Your people didn't just erase this planet from history. They erased them. Suddenly, a deep guttural sound echoed through the chamber. The ground trembled harder. Something ancient was waking up. Vance turned toward the entrance. Whatever's down here, it's time to leave. Carell hesitated. But, move. They sprinted back down the corridor. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the ruins seemed to come alive. The moment they reached the entrance, the sealed doors slid open again. But this time, something was waiting for them. A massive creature stood in the ruins, twice as tall as the others. Its kitten was darker, its eyes brighter. It let out a low, rumbling growl. Carell gasped. This one, it's different. Vance raised his rifle. Different or not, if it attacks, I'm taking it down. But the creature didn't move. It simply stood there, watching them. Then, for the first time, Carol felt something. A whisper in her mind. A voice. Faint but clear. You finally see. She staggered back, her eyes wide. Vance. It spoke to me. Vance didn't lower his weapon. What did it say? Carl swallowed. It knows who I am. The creature took a slow step forward. The clicking sounds of the others grew louder, surrounding them. Carol turned to Vance, fear in her eyes. I think we just woke up something my people tried to bury forever. Vance kept his rifle steady, his finger resting on the trigger. The massive creature stood before them, its glowing red eyes locked onto Carl. The air around them felt heavy, charged with something unseen. Carol's hands trembled as she stared at the towering being. You can think, she whispered. The creature's mandibles clicked, and again she heard the whisper in her mind. Once, long ago, before your kind took our minds, our world. Carel flinched. The weight of those words pressed down on her chest. Her people had done this. Vance, sensing the tension, spoke without lowering his weapon. What do you want? The creature's head tilted slightly. To remember, to be whole again. Suddenly, the ruins trembled, and a deep hum echoed through the chamber. The walls pulsed with blue light, and the ancient console behind them flickered. The energy in the room was shifting. Something was waking up. Vance's instincts screamed at him. We need to get out of here. But Carol stood frozen. Wait, she said. There's more to this. I can feel it. The creature took a step closer, but the others behind it remained still. Unlike before, they weren't attacking. They were waiting. Carol placed a hand on her temple, focusing on the strange connection between her and the creature. There's something inside this ruin. Something important. The creature's whisper grew stronger. A prison. Carol's eyes widened. A prison? For what? The ground shook again, harder this time. Cracks spread across the floor, and a deep metallic groan echoed through the ruins. The ancient technology, hidden for centuries, was failing. Vance grabbed Carol's arm. We are leaving. Now. Carol didn't argue this time. The creature didn't stop them as they ran past. Instead, it simply watched, its glowing eyes filled with something strange. Hope. As they sprinted through the jungle, a massive explosion burst from the ruins behind them. A pillar of blue light shot into the sky, splitting the dark clouds. The creatures in the jungle screeched in response, their bodies trembling as if feeling something for the first time. Vance and Carol stopped on a rocky ledge, gasping for breath. They turned to see the ruins now glowing like a beacon. Vance scowled. What the hell did we just set free? Carol's voice was barely above a whisper, something my ancestors tried to keep locked away. The creatures below let out a deep, unearthly howl. Their bodies twitched, their eyes flickering between red and something else. Something new. And then the whisper returned. "We are waking up." Vance and Carol exchanged a look. Their real fight was only beginning. Vance and Carol stood on the rocky ledge, staring at the ruins below. The once dark jungle was now lit by the eerie blue glow from the ancient structure. The creatures, once mindless hunters, trembled as if something was changing inside them. Vance reloaded his rifle, his expression grim. "I don't like this." Carol swallowed hard. "Neither do I." Then the whisper returned, stronger this time. "We are waking up." Carol flinched. The voice wasn't just in her head anymore. It echoed through the jungle. The creatures below clicked their mandibles in unison, their red eyes flickering. Some of them staggered, others collapsed, twitching violently. Vance tensed. "Are they dying?" Carol shook her head. "No, they're remembering." Suddenly, one of the larger creatures stood up, its movements slower, more deliberate. It lifted its head and turned toward them. But this time, there was no blind rage in its eyes, only awareness. It took a step forward and spoke, not in words, but in thought. "We were not always like this." Carol's breath caught. "They're regaining their intelligence." Vance's grip on his rifle tightened, and that's a good thing. Before Carol could answer, the ground rumbled again. A massive crack split open near the ruins, and from the depths below, something rose. A towering structure, metallic and ancient, emerged from beneath the jungle floor. Strange energy pulsed around it, sending waves of force through the air. The sky darkened, and the wind howled. The creatures all turned toward it, their bodies shaking. Carol clutched her head. Something is inside that structure. Vance didn't hesitate. "We need to leave." But before they could move, the large creature, the one who had spoken, raised a clawed hand. "You cannot run from this. It is already here." The energy in the air crackled. Then, a deep, guttural sound echoed from the rising structure, a sound that didn't belong to the creatures. Carol's face paled. "That's not them." Vance took a step back. He had heard that kind of sound before, in war. It was the sound of something powerful and angry. The creature looked at them with glowing, intelligent eyes. "They locked us away, but they also locked something else inside. Now, it is free." A bright light erupted from the structure. A massive, shadowy figure moved within. Vance exhaled sharply. This just got worse, didn't it? Carol didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep in her heart, she already knew the truth. Her ancestors didn't just erase a civilization. They imprisoned something so terrible that they were willing to destroy an entire world to keep it hidden. And now, it was loose. The massive structure stood like a silent giant, its metal walls pulsing with ancient energy. The sky above turned stormy, lightning crackling across the dark clouds. The jungle creatures, once mindless hunters, watched in eerie silence. Vance kept his rifle ready, his instincts screaming danger. "Carol, tell me you have an explanation for this." Carol's fingers trembled as she touched the pendant around her neck. The Valeri locked something away here, something dangerous enough to bury this planet in history. A deep, bone-chilling growl echoed from inside the structure. Then the entrance split open, releasing a burst of cold, unnatural air. A dark shape moved within. Vance took a step back. Yeah, that's usually the part where we run. The large creature, the one who had regained intelligence, spoke in their minds. "We thought we were alone in this prison. We were wrong." From the darkness, a figure emerged. It was tall, almost twice the height of a human. Its body was covered in black, metallic armor that shimmered like liquid. Its eyes glowed a deep, unnatural white. It had no mouth, but its presence alone sent a wave of fear through the air. Vance had faced many enemies before, but this thing felt wrong. Carol's voice shook. "This is impossible." The dark figure tilted its head slightly. Then, without warning, it moved. It was fast, faster than anything Vance had ever seen. 1 second it was standing at the entrance, the next it was in front of the nearest creature. The creature screeched and tried to attack, but the figure simply raised a hand. A pulse of dark energy blasted through the air, sending the creature flying. It crashed into a tree, motionless. Vance fired his rifle. The energy blast hit the figure square in the chest, but it did nothing. The figure slowly turned toward him. Vance cursed under his breath. "Oh, that's bad." Carol grabbed his arm. "We have to go." The large creature, the one who had spoken to them, stepped forward. "This is why they destroyed our world. Not to erase us, but to contain it." Vance's stomach twisted. They weren't just covering up a crime. They were stopping an apocalypse. The dark figure lifted a hand, and the air around them turned heavy. The jungle trembled. The ruins cracked. Carol's mind was racing. If my ancestors locked it away, then there must be a way to stop it. The creature's voice whispered again. "Then you must remember what they tried to forget." Another pulse of dark energy erupted, knocking them all to the ground. And in that moment, as Carol's vision blurred, she saw something, a memory buried deep within her bloodline. The key to stopping this nightmare was hidden inside her own past. Carol gasped as the vision overtook her. Blurred images flashed through her mind. Her ancestors standing in a great council, fear in their eyes. The dark figure stood before them, just as it did now, its glowing white eyes burning with hunger. Then she saw it, the seal. A massive energy barrier, powered by something ancient, something Valerie. Her breath caught. It wasn't just technology that locked it away. It was their own life force. Vance shook her shoulder. "Carol, snap out of it." She blinked, her vision clearing. The dark figure was stepping toward them, its presence warping the air. The jungle around them was dying. Leaves withered, trees cracked, and the ground itself seemed to rot beneath its feet. Vance aimed his rifle again, but Carol grabbed his arm. "Weapons won't work. This thing feeds on energy." Vance gritted his teeth. "Great. Any ideas before it kills us?" Carol's heart pounded. The vision had shown her the truth. Her ancestors hadn't just locked the creature away. They had bound it, using their own essence. She took a shaky breath. "I know how to stop it." The large creature, the one who had regained intelligence, turned to her. "Then do it, before we all fall." Carol stepped forward, her hands trembling. The dark figure tilted its head as if recognizing her. The whisper in her mind was different this time. "Valerie, you carry their blood. You cannot stop me." Carol clenched her fists. "I can try." She raised her hands, focusing on the energy running through her veins, the same energy her ancestors had used. The pendant around her neck began to glow. The dark figure hesitated. Carol pressed her palm to the ground. Blue energy surged from her body, spreading like lightning. The ancient ruins responded, pulsing with the same light. The earth beneath them trembled. Vance took a step back. What exactly is happening?" Carol gritted her teeth. "I'm reactivating the seal." The dark figure suddenly moved. It lunged at her, a wave of black energy crashing forward. Vance acted on instinct. He threw himself in front of Carl, bracing for impact. But at the last second, the blue energy surrounding her expanded, forming a barrier. The dark wave shattered against it. The figure let out a sound, a low, distorted growl. For the first time, it seemed afraid. Carol felt her strength fading, but she pushed harder. The ruins responded, their glow turning blindingly bright. The energy swirled around the dark figure, pulling it back. The creature's voice echoed, filled with fury. "No, this prison cannot hold me forever." Carol clenched her fists. "It will hold you long enough." With a final burst of power, the ruins sealed shut. The dark figure let out one last furious scream, and then it was gone. The jungle fell silent. Carol collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Vance knelt beside her. Did we win? Carol looked at the now dormant ruins. For now. But deep inside, she knew this was not over. Silence filled the jungle. The ruins had gone dark, the blue energy fading back into the ancient stone. The massive structure that had risen from the ground was now still, sealed once again. Carol sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Her body felt weak, drained from the energy she had used. The pendant around her neck was now dim, its power spent. Vance knelt beside her, scanning her face. You still with me? Carol nodded slowly. I think so. The large creature, the one who had regained intelligence, stood a few feet away, watching them. Its glowing red eyes flickered, filled with something new. Understanding. It spoke, not with words, but with thought. You did what your ancestors could not. You faced the past, and chose to make it right. Carol met its gaze. I only delayed it. That thing, it will try to escape again. The creature nodded. Perhaps. But now, we are awake, and we will be ready. Vance exhaled, shaking his head. I can't believe we just stopped some ancient nightmare. And I definitely can't believe I teamed up with a giant bug to do it. The creature let out a low, rumbling sound, something close to a laugh. Carol managed a small smile, but her heart was still heavy. My people buried the truth. They destroyed an entire world to hide their mistake. She looked at the creature. I won't let history repeat itself. The creature's eyes softened. Then perhaps there is hope for your kind after all. A distant rumble echoed through the jungle. The storm that had covered the sky was fading. The air felt lighter, as if the planet itself was breathing again. Vance stood up and offered Carol his hand. Come on, princess. Time to go home. She took his hand, pulling herself up. It doesn't feel like home anymore. Vance shrugged. Then maybe it's time to make a new one. The large creature stepped back, glancing at the others of its kind. Some of them still twitched, struggling to regain their lost intelligence. It turned back to them one last time. Go, but remember this place. And remember us. Carol placed a hand over her heart. I won't forget. Vance smirked. Yeah, I don't think I'll be forgetting any of this either. As they made their way back through the jungle, the ruins stood tall behind them, silent, but not empty. The creatures had changed. Their minds were returning, their lost history no longer forgotten. Carol looked up at the sky. Her people would demand answers, and she was ready to give them, because the past was no longer buried. And the future was theirs to shape.